You're live.
We're live. Well, welcome to today's episode of Bricklet Buzz Live.
Hey Ray, how you doing?
I'm good, mate. How you doing?
Very well, thank you.
How's your family coping with all the lockdown measures?
Week 6.
It is week 6, isn't
It's
it?
week 6, and I think I read something today that they've got about 100 days to 80% vaccination, which means we're going to be here for quite some time. So, ordered some more board games on Amazon and hoping they get delivered very quickly.
There's a bit of a wait on some of those deliveries at the moment.
There are.
Yeah, I know. We're all coming up with innovative ways of keeping ourselves entertained, but I guess we feel for a lot of people out there who are really doing it tough.
Yeah, definitely. I guess we're one of the lucky ones. The industries that we're working in haven't been closed down, but for all those people that have had businesses decimated, jobs, some people are really doing it tough out there. So hopefully their support networks looking after them.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess today's episode we're going to be sharing with people, the listeners, those who might be choosing to watch us live as we record this, about our property journey, how we got started. Because one of the questions we've been getting from the community is how to get started in property, and finding out from us our own personal journey and our experiences with property.
Yeah, sounds good. So my property journey. So I guess I have to go back to my uni days, which was quite some time ago. And at the same time that I was sort of going through uni was the same time that Robert Kiyosaki was coming out with the Rich Dad Poor Dad series. And I went and saw him live at the Sydney Entertainment Centre.
Yep.
Got some free tickets.
The Sydney Entertainment Centre.
Sydney Entertainment Centre or Convention Centre, somewhere like
that. Well,
it
was called the Sydney Entertainment Centre in the early days. Yeah.
A stadium, somewhere, not a stadium, somewhere in Sydney. It was a while ago.
Yeah.
Saw him, thousands of people in this crowd. I had the nosebleed free tickets right up the top as a uni student. But some of the concepts that he was talking about really resonated with me around cash flow and business and buying property and positively geared property and things like that. And then that's so my parents were property investors, so I'd been dragged around to open homes with them as a teenager. So yeah, I was as interested in becoming a school teacher as learning how to make money, and then through property. So yeah, I got onto the property ladder pretty early.
And I guess, so how did you start with that?
So I guess I started by making a decision that that's what I wanted to do. I'd left my teaching career at that particular point, and I was working for a mortgage broker. I was working as a mortgage broker, building property portfolios for clients. So I was basically immersed in how to fund them, different investment opportunities, and that's when I had some savings, knocked on the door of the bank of mum and dad.
Yeah, okay. Which is still a strategy today.
It is still a strategy today. Robust strategy, I must say. Got my first deposit and bought my first investment property back in my sort of early mid-20s. So wish I'd kept that one. Wish I'd kept all of them. But so I bought that first one. And then at that time, there wasn't any first homeowners grants or anything like that, but I'd had some advice from accountants and various other different people. And rather than buying that first investment property in my own personal name, I set that up in a family discretionary trust. So that way, in the future, if I was going to buy another property as my principal place of residence, I would still get the full first homeowners grant. So I used that strategy back in the day. And again, I was very fortunate because I was just surrounded by experienced property investors, experienced financiers, and then the accounting, the whole team was sort of there. So I was able to sort of get all of my questions answered, which is good. So yeah, I was really lucky to have a great team around me.
Yeah, it's interesting, hey, how Australians have this fascination, a love affair with property, and how it makes you feel. Like when you bought your first property and you get the phone call from your solicitor saying it's settled, your name's on title. How did it make you feel?
I don't know. It was because I transacted so many properties before in my role. Yeah, I just knew the process, so it wasn't as big as what it probably should have been. My biggest thing was I now owe hundreds of thousands of dollars to the bank. That was a big that was a big realization that now I was heavily reliant upon my income and rental income. That was my big first commitment to anything outside of having a fun life.
Yeah. Okay. I guess my beginnings were a little bit more unconventional. I didn't grow up with property in mind. My parents, when they first came out here, chose to live on the North Shore of Sydney in order to at that stage, hopefully provide their kids with a level of education and rented for the majority of their life. And so I never grew up with the idea of owning a home or even buying a rental or investment property. And it was only till a bit later on, after I got married, that I kind of fell into it. And I've been traveling overseas with my wife Louise and our little boy at that stage, Samuel, who was two. We've been over to Europe to see my family, because my family all live in the Netherlands, apart from my parents and my sister. And came back, and I was studying law, and I did not want to go back into finishing off my law degree to become a lawyer. And even though 25 years later, I'm now 2 subjects off from actually completing my law degree, 25 years in the making, but I'm super stoked about being very close to achieving that for my personal reasons. And so when I came back, I was looking for something to do, and I was looking in the local North Shore Times, and there was an advertisement for a real estate agent. And I said to Louise, I'm going to apply for the job. It's up the road. And off I went, and I applied, and I got the job. And I started getting a bit more of an understanding about the whole property process. And even though I understood the legal side of it, I'd never really transacted in property as such. And one of my jobs was to go door knocking, just knock on the doors to try and get a listing. And as my mentor at that stage, the owner and the licensee of this particular real estate agency taught me, said, you've got to list. Without listings, an agency doesn't make any money. And so my job was either calling through the white pages in those days, because in those days it was a big white book, and you get a calling list, and you make your phone calls. And every night I got to make X amount of phone calls. And on top of that, I would go door knocking. And in my door knocking journey, I came across a property that they said, oh no, we're not interested in selling. This place is being rezoned. And so I went, what the heck does that even mean? And so I went on a bit of a self-teaching kind of journey and started teaching myself what that actually meant. I started going to council to read these zoning maps, talked to some people who had a bit of experience in that space, and started developing an understanding around property development.
And then when that was happening for you, there was no Google, there was no software to do all this.
Google? At that stage, internet was like this. You would log in and be going, and you're trying, and you're waiting for it to finally give you the signal that it connected. Yep. Not like today where it's instant, where we complain if a page doesn't download in a second, you know? So no, it was hitting the pavement, kind of learning.
I remember back then I sent my first email, and it ended up costing like $2 because the email was transacted like a phone call. Oh, so funny. I got in trouble for that. But yeah, it was very, very interesting times of where the internet and everything has taken us to today.
Yeah, but Google that time wasn't in existence. It was Netscape.
That's right.
And we had, and for years later, we had the whole idea around, I think it was MySpace.
MySpace, yeah.
Before Facebook came over and took over the world, you know. But it was at that time that I really started to teach myself around property and the idea of the development cycle, the property cycle, how to manufacture product. And I went through the process of, securing these properties under an option agreement, which basically gave me a right over the property so that I could then go and apply to council with a development application to change the current usage to something else. And at that stage, it was single dwellings, but it had been rezoned to allow medium density. And it took me 2 years to get a development approval for 114 apartments. It was a lengthy process, but it was rewarding. And several times during the course of that 2 years, I had people telling me just to give up, walk away. But I didn't, persisted. Every time I would have to go to a council meeting, they'd ask me for another report, and I go, here it is. Next meeting again, we need to have this. Don't worry, I've already got it. Off we go. Finally got the development approval for 114 apartments, and I on-sold that DA. I also managed to pair up with a very experienced property developer who I really learnt a lot from. And one of the key lessons I learnt from that whole process is how important it is to surround yourself with the right people.
Yeah, having a good mentor or a good team around you really saves you from falling into some of those huge, financially devastating mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. But I remember getting the phone call when we sold the option agreements with the approval, and I tell you what, I was on cloud 9. It was a surreal experience. And from there on, I kept going.
That's interesting though, because you never actually became a property owner.
No.
So
for me, it was a deal.
Through that part, yeah. So no. But so through that transaction, you were able to actually make money through property without ever actually owning property at all.
Absolutely.
It's definitely a great way and an advanced strategy when you're looking at investing in property. It's definitely a route that people don't ordinarily take for their first purchase.
No, I know. That's why I said unconventional.
No, but it's a fantastic way now for anyone who wants to learn about property. The reason I was saying that there was not the internet and Google and all these things is because you had to go and learn how to do all these different things by going to council, getting a mentor. There was no online course, become a property developer.
No.
There weren't this plethora of books. The whole educational system was not out there to actually teach all these skills. You had to actually go to either TAFE or university or become a builder to actually learn that process.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you had to learn on the fly, where now all of that information it's all on the internet.
Yeah.
And you don't have to actually pay for it. You can just learn it all yourself. But I find that even no matter how much you can read these different bits of information, having that team of trusted advisors and mentors to ensure that you don't make a mistake is absolutely vital, because property and property development is one of those things where you can make a lot of money. But there's a lot of really successful business owners that try their hand at property development, and it's a completely different ballgame, and they can lose, and people have lost a lot of money doing that.
Absolutely.
So property development is a skill set. It's an entire business on its own. But we do it now, and it's great. It's good fun.
Yeah, and just talking about it now and thinking back of the whole experience, and what it costs if you're looking to achieve some level of success in life, and it doesn't come cheap, and sacrifices needed to be made. And at that time, my wife Louise was pregnant with our second child. And in order just to keep the lights going, I worked in a petrol station pumping gas from midnight till 7 o'clock in the morning, so that during the day I could continue working on what I was doing. And Louise, who did not want to be far away from me, would sleep in the car park while I did the midnight shift with our son Samuel, who was 2, pregnant with our daughter Hunter. And we did that for nearly 12 months as we tried to keep the lights going while I was working on this deal.
That's an interesting thing when people look at you and they think, you're successful, or you're so lucky you met this person or that person. But what they don't see is everything that went into you creating that level of success for yourself. Every successful business person, entrepreneur, property investor has had to give up other things in their life or put up things off in their life to achieve the goals that they have set for themselves, and then that creates the success that they're then living, that then you look at. Young investors that are out there that are looking at going down this track, the first thing that you need to create to invest is seed capital. You need to have capital, and it's one of the hardest things to do, because when you start hopefully you're starting at zero. A lot of people start at minus.
Yeah, sure.
Because you've got
that's a reality.
Car loans, credit cards, afterpay, all that good stuff.
Yeah. Funding
your lifestyle. But if you can be at zero and then starting from there and then moving forward, how hard it is to save that first $1,000, that first $5,000, that first $10,000. It takes time. But the things that you give up to get there and the momentum that you build and the good habits that you build into your life will pay huge dividends down the track.
Oh yeah, and one of the key things that I learned, and I get asked this question a lot, how to get started, but where do you start? And you're right, absolutely. Without seed, there's no harvest. If you don't have something to invest, you're not going to be able to start anything.
Yep.
But even before that, for me, the most important thing is making sure that my thinking is right. And during those initial early days of trying to pull this deal off, I would actually imagine myself being some kind of property baron, some kind of property boss, because again, you get people within your circles who care about you, but don't necessarily fully understand what's going on and your commitment to it, would think they're doing the right thing by saying, look, you know what, Ray, let it go back to becoming a lawyer, go and get yourself a job and all the rest of it. And to fight that, I had to have a resolve. And that started by switching on the right thinking about how I saw myself. And I really had to see myself as this property freaking baron, like, no, I'm pulling off this deal. I can already imagine, I can see myself as that. And I would, like I said, surround myself with people who had experience, and I would ask them, so did you go through this? It's like no different to, I'm a massive fan of being up in the Himalayas. Before COVID, I would be up in the Himalayas every year, whether it be riding a motorbike or whitewater rafting or trekking. Because when I spent 5 years on a bit of a sabbatical living in India, and I fell in love with, playing around this rooftop of the world.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time when I was hiking and I started to feel that altitude sickness. And what I did, I spoke to one of the Sherpas and I said, do you feel the headache? Do you feel what I'm feeling? And their answer was yes. They said, yes. And I said, and they go, it will pass, just slow down. And so rather than basing it on what I was experiencing right then and allowing that to be my reality, I took on board because they'd done this so many more times. And I said, no, I'm going to listen to what they're saying. I'm going to bring that experience and make it my experience. And so I pushed through, listened to what they had to say, take on their wise counsel about slowing down.
Yep.
And that's one of the key things when you're doing anything at high altitudes. And it's the same thing when it comes to property, when you're first starting out, paint a picture of yourself. Read experiences and stories of others who have created success using property as a great tool for achieving whatever financial goal or success story they see for themselves. Because you are going to get a lot of people around you that will have something else to say. And you need something to arm yourself with to fight back, to build that resolve.
Yeah, well, the important thing with that is to see yourself, future pace what you're going to be, and then write goals in the present tense. Not I will become successful, is I am a successful property investor. Because when you tell your mind that that's what you are,
yes,
your mind will figure out how to get you there.
That's right.
There's all those aha moments when you're going out for a surf, or you're having a run,
right,
or you're just walking down the street with your kids,
Yeah.
and then you've been working on a problem that you've got in your life, and then it just pops, the solution just pops into your head. So that was really interesting. Getting back to property, the second property deal that I did was a very interesting one. So 2008.
Oh yeah, 2008.
Global financial crisis.
Yeah, good time.
Great time. I still hadn't bought a principal posted residence yet, and as everyone can probably remember, the world was falling apart. The financial world was falling apart. I was working with Rain and Horn Financial Services at that particular point, so I had a lot of access to real estate agents on the northern beaches here, and then also a lot of access to the property developers that they were selling property for. And one of the developers needed to get his pre-sales to get his funding. So I was able to negotiate a fantastic price on a property then, and just as the global financial crisis was hitting, or just as it was seeing how bad an impact it has, the government was coming out with no stamp duty, $25,000 or $30,000 cash bonus, all these different things. But this property then wasn't built for, say, the next 12 months. So I was able to lock in a very good price on a property, get all of my bonuses through the government, and basically I got into that property with no money down. For the money that the government gave me, plus the equity that grew during that construction period, that was over a 20% deposit. So yeah, it was great. And that was my first little home. When I actually bought that property, I was chuffed because that was my first home.
Yeah.
And I was happy because I did it was such a great deal. So yeah, that was my second one, or not my second property, but that was the second really good deal, property deal that I did. And then since then, I've bought and sold a whole lot of different properties over time. So it's been an interesting journey. I think, looking back, I wish I just kept everything.
Yeah, because the true strategy sitting behind using property as a great tool for creating wealth or helping you achieve your financial goals is understanding that it's a medium to long-term kind of play.
Yeah, definitely.
Unless you're doing something that is intrinsically adding value to allow you to trade it sooner than that, like doing development or renovation or some kind of active strategy.
Yeah, adding value some ways you can then pull that capital out. But I still also think even with those little shorter term active strategies, if you can just generate instant equity in property and then have strong enough cash flow in those deals where they fund the interest only loans or the P&I repayments, and they're not having a negative impact on your cash flow, you keep those properties forever and all properties just rise with the tide. So I cheekily go back and have a look at the portfolio that I had and what they'd be worth today, and I kick myself every time. So my advice to my younger self would just be do everything that you can to actually hold those properties and keep them. And then going forward, that would be a strategy that I'm doing. Everything that I buy going forward, I have the view that I'll be keeping them forever.
And I guess, in the conversations we have, and we often have conversations with younger people because my two kids now are in their 20s and, and their group of friends. And, we often have chats about investing and future and, how to create some levels of financial security. And how to get started. And like I said, for me, one of my key lessons is making sure you switched on the right mindset, that you really see yourself. You've already painted that successful story for yourself, because a compelling story will help you push through the pain and the sacrifices that are required. The component added to that is investing in yourself, because you are your greatest asset. So don't look at what resources that you may or may not have at the moment and using that as an excuse not to move forward or to see yourself with a bright future. It starts with investing in yourself, educate yourself, switch on the right thinkings, paint a compelling story for yourself, invest in that, because that's investing, that's sowing seed into yourself, and then hustle. Think outside of the box, That's why I like the idea of this whole property entrepreneur, because an entrepreneur is somebody who thinks outside of the box, not limited to by what they see. They will come up with, the whole idea of thinking outside of the box is that the box doesn't actually exist. That the whole puzzle came from, that 9 dots on a page, and the challenge is try to connect all the 9 dots without lifting the pen off. And the only way you can do is by going outside of the box, and that's the only way you can connect those 9 dots. But the reality is there's actually no box on the page, it's just 9 dots. So it's your blank canvas, And and one of my favorite sayings, and you've heard me say this before, it's by Anita Roddick, who says, "Nobody talks of entrepreneurship as survival, but that's exactly what it is and what nurtures creative thinking." And I think that's the approach you need to take when it comes to anything in life.
Well, successful entrepreneurship, you are constantly putting out fires and solving problems. So you have to be able to think out. Well, you just have to be able to be very creative in your problem solving. But also entrepreneurship and running a business, it's a skill set. And not everyone is fit to be or is built to be an entrepreneur, nor should they think about achieving that in a sense of becoming the next Jeff Bezos or Zuckerberg or any of these people. You can live a very successful, fulfilling life working in a career in a larger organization, but then outside of that, your side hustle might be investing in property, or it could be one of your side hustles. And that part of entrepreneurship you can definitely have, because, I like to think about it as, me Inc. My life, I am my own enterprise, and I have my balance sheet and I have my income statement, and I need to manage that, which is exactly like running a business. So you should still be looking at your personal financial situation exactly like that. And these side hustles that you have and these investments that you make can easily create time freedom and financial security if you do it appropriately and have a plan in place to execute on that.
Yeah, and the thing I would add to that is, like you said, often we define an entrepreneur as somebody who started a business. For me personally, I see entrepreneurship as a way of thinking.
Mindset,
And so you can apply an entrepreneurial spirit to whatever it is that you're doing, whether you're an employee working with an organization, or whether you started your own business, or whether you're at home, you can apply this mindset, this thinking of trying to solve problems, which is exactly what we do on a daily basis. And I saw this probably more so when I spent my 5 years over in India. And over there, the idea of being an entrepreneur is not a luxury. It's not something I can put on my LinkedIn profile. It's survival. They have to come up with ways to create or generate an income. Otherwise, there is no food on the table. There's no roof over their head. They just don't survive. And that's the reason why this, for me, this quote by Anita Roddick is so personal, because I saw it firsthand. And so you see, the people that I got to meet over in India who were entrepreneurs in every sense of the word, whether it be buying a piece of soap, cutting up into small pieces and selling it to people within their community or in their village, or doing different things to generate an income to survive. And I think, today we can get bogged down with all the noise out there in the marketplace on how difficult it is to get started in property, how it's becoming more and more out of reach for people, how unachievable it is. Now, you can choose to listen to that, or you can choose to say, okay, that might be true in a lot of respects, but I'm not going to let that define the way I move forward. Yeah, I'm going to hustle. I'm going to think outside of the box. I'm going to come up with ways that's going to help me, build that life story that I see for myself.
Yeah, definitely. And look, you've also got to see, all generations have gone through the same thing. Like, everyone has gone to school, left school, gotten a job, had to save a deposit, and decided what they're going to do with the income that they generate. So no matter how much or income you generate and how much, it's more important how much you spend. So the highest earners, the clients that I have, they're the biggest spenders. And most of the time, the ones that are earning the most money are actually spending over and above what they're earning. The most important thing is how much money you're keeping and driving that into your wealth portfolio. And starting as soon as you start earning your first dollar. So I'm already teaching my kids that, every dollar that they get, every tooth that falls out, every time that they get any money at all, a certain portion of that goes into their wealth account. And that never comes out. It just continually compounds for them. And they don't understand how that's going to work longer term, but it's about, from a very, very young age, I'm trying to build in those habits where they understand as money flows in, I have to fund this portion into my wealth account. And they're doing that on an ongoing basis, which is great. Another thing that I do with them is I sort of say, look, if you don't take any money out of your bank account all year, then I'll double it every year. Yeah. That's going to hurt in years to come with the compounding.
Yes. Well, I did that with my kids.
Yeah. I think I got it from you. And then there's the whole idea is like, if you don't have to buy, and the whole idea of like, oh, Dad, I really want to buy this thing. Okay, go away and think about it. And if you still want that in 2 days' time, I'll come down and get it for you. Never, once. Little Stefan has come back to me and said, I want those big Pokemon cards. He gets reminded about it every day at school with the other kids. But it stayed in there. And most of the time they actually don't want that little tidbit, whatever it is. And adults, we're exactly the same.
Oh yeah, that instant gratification, that need to satisfy whatever it is that you want right then and there, and you go out of your way to put yourself in difficult positions to try and satisfy that urge. Yep. We taught those lessons to our kids earlier on at the same time, and because it doesn't get taught at school, the whole idea of a personal economy. In everybody's life, you've got this thoroughfare of transactions that occur based on needs and wants. It's money that flows through your life. And it's understanding as human beings that every purchase that we make, there is a need aspect to it, but there's also an emotional aspect to it.
Hang on a second, Ray. What? I need everything I want. I have to fulfill that emotional bucket in my life.
But really understanding that personal economy and really evaluating it properly, and we talk about this and about, your personal exertion, your labor, what you make from your job, and then land that you might have, whether it be your house or an investment property or vacant land. Is that working for you, And then the third one is your capital, your savings or your term deposits, but even other things when you start looking outside of the box and how you can hustle to create additional income to help you achieve your financial goals. The example that I often use is, we bought a new car, it wasn't being used, and sitting at the front of the house, $35,000 brand new car, and Louise put it onto Car Next Door. And next minute, that car is now generating $1,000 a month of relatively passive income.
And then, so when you think about that, that's a 30% return on capital.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to achieve that type of return in anything else. But also, even in like the pandemic that we have now, like the busiest people are the Uber Eats drivers, all those people that are whipping around on board. We live in Manly, so they're all on push bikes and so on and so forth. But I would say all over Australia, there are people delivering food everywhere. So if you are looking for a side hustle, maybe that's a way.
Well, I did it. I did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the way that you just get that extra little bit. So what are some of the other ideas, I guess, for people to start to create that initial seed that they're going to need to sort of get onto that property ladder? So the first thing that people need to do is look at their spending plan. I don't want to call budget, because budget's just.
Leaves a certain flavour.
We plan to spend. Yep. So what that does is that empowers you, and you know already as that money comes in, you know exactly what that's going to be allocated to, and there's a certain portion of that which is allocated to just frivolous, fun spending.
Yeah, because you got to enjoy life.
That's exactly right. And we don't know how long we're going to be here for. So you've got to do that. You've got to have just that fun money that you don't account for. But part of that is also then being very committed to making sure that you're filling those other buckets first. You know, your wealth portfolio, your fixed spending, and then all those discretional spending, and have that fun money. So spend less than what you earn.
It sounds so simple, but...
Well, it took me 39 years to work out how to do it.
You've been managing to do that for the last 6 months, yeah?
Yeah, something like that. It's only because I can't go for dinner anymore. Spend less than what you earn. Yeah, it's so vitally important. So that's the first step. There are a plethora of apps and different things out there, but it's really easy. Get your last 90 days transactions out of your bank account, get it into Excel, have a look at how much you spent, how much you earned, and you'll show the difference. And then just go through there and find out where you can actually cut back a little bit and try and get your savings up to 20%. That's sort of the sweet spot that I work with most of our clients. If you can get your savings up to 20% over and above your superannuation putting away, that means you're saving 30% of your income. Yep. Yeah, and if you can be in that sort of position, you can really start to fast forward that time freedom and financial security that we're all looking to achieve. And most of us call it retirement. I don't think of it as retirement. I think I'll always do something.
Yeah.
But having that level of financial security where I have passive income being paid to me to fund my lifestyle gives me time freedom. I can be anywhere with the people that I love, doing the things that we can enjoy. And that's what I'm really passionate about. So it's number one, spend less than what you earn. But have you got something that...
Well, I think you have to invest in yourself. You have to educate yourself, and don't just think there's only one way of doing things. So if you're looking to get into the property market, don't just think there's only one way of doing it. If you can't fit within that one way, it means you're excluded. No, it doesn't exist. Yeah? Find a way. Hustle. Make the money that you do have work hard for you. Make it work. It's like an employee. Like Robert Kiyosaki says, make that employee work hard for you. If it's just sitting in the bank going backwards, you're kidding yourself that you're going to wake up one day and all of a sudden everything's going to fall into place and magically appear with all this money for you to go and start transacting. Not going to happen. Yep. Invest in yourself. Switch on the right thinking. Turn on the thinking that really sees yourself as an investor. So understanding that what you're doing is for a long-term strategy to create that level of financial security, that financial independence that people are looking for, because that's really why we create wealth. Yep. That's the reason. So, but you've got to make it personal. So it's one thing to say, oh, I want financial security, but how would that change my life? I want financial independence. How would that change my life? So write your story down, make it compelling, make it relatable to where you are right now, and understand that it will shift over time. Your life story that you see in the future in your 20s and in your 30s and your 40s will shift.
Yes.
Yep. That's true. It's natural.
Definitely.
Yep. But make it compelling, because then you will make the sacrifices. Then you will look at your personal economy and make the adjustments, because if you don't have seed, if you don't have money sitting in your wealth account doing something for you, it's not going to happen.
I think that's a really good point. So before you have amassed this amount of capital that you're looking to allocate into investment, whether that be property or anything else, really get some education so you understand how to invest, what to invest in, and you understand the different options that you have to invest. You can say, well, I'm going to invest in the share market, or I'm going to invest in property. But then those two things are just two huge asset classes. And then which particular part of each of those are you going to invest in? Or are you going to put half and half in each? Like, how is that going to work? Start to formulate a plan around these things before you have seed, before you have capital.
That's right.
Learn, really educate yourself about that. Financial literacy is as important as learning how to read and write.
Absolutely.
Walk. No one cares about your money more than you should. No one, no matter whoever you pay as a custodian of your money, no one cares about it as much as you do. So learn about how money works, how investing works, and the different outcomes that you can achieve through that. So that's great advice. I'd also think about, how can they sell things that they don't use? Yeah. So if you really want to get on this investing track and you want to fast forward it, then look at, what do I have that I just don't use? And then sell it. Yep. Sell it, bring that capital in, and then utilize that for it. So rather than just an old surfboard sitting in your garage that you haven't used for 2 summers, sell it, get that capital, bring it in, and then allocate that into your wealth portfolio. The secret is once it goes into your wealth portfolio, it never comes out.
Yeah. Look, I'll give you just one more example before because we're getting close to our time slot.
Yep.
But another example. So our kids came to us. They said, "Oh, Dad, we've saved $1,000. What should we do with it?" And Hunter's like, "If I put it in the bank, Dad, what am I going to get?" I said, "Well, Hunter, if you invest your $1,000 into your savings account, in 12 months' time, you will probably get $2. She goes, "What?" Because she's used to, if I don't touch my money, Dad's going to double it. Well, those days well and truly stopped when they got into their teens because we couldn't afford it, yeah? And we had taught them a lesson already.
Yeah.
And so we were driving in the car and we went, what could we do? And I saw a caravan pull up in front of us. And I said, we should buy an old caravan and flip it. And as a family, we scoured the gum tree, whatever, and we found this caravan, old one that had somewhat been gutted, up at Mount Colah. We drove up there, we bought it, brought it back, and we renovated it. And we turned a couple of $1,000s into $7,000. And so it's just looking at different ways and not just saying, what I'm being told is the only way to do things. And if I don't fit in, I'm going to lose. No, don't accept it. Write your own story.
Yeah, the trading time for money is important. Everyone has to work and trade time for money, but it's in what you do with that surplus and how can you compound that using your skills and talents and your expertise to be able to then grow that capital at a faster rate that the bank's going to pay you, 2.2% or whatever it might be. Yeah, there's some really great ideas. And I guess before we wrap up, we just want to talk about Bricklet a little bit.
Okay.
So, Bricklet now has a promotion at the moment. The Bricklet payment plan is back. The way that works is it's an interest-free facility. So it's specifically targeting millennials or people trying to get onto the property market, and there's going to be no interest cost on that. So it's really simple. You need to have a 10% deposit and pay for your on costs. And then there's a facility where you then make equal repayments over an 18-month period, and then you then own that Bricklet. So for sort of under $4,000, that's sort of the deposit, you can get started. And then the repayments are around about $1,000 a month or thereabouts, depending on the different Bricklets that you choose. But that type of investment gets you into your first property fragment now, which means you get the potential capital growth over the future. And then as that property is rented out, you also get that rental income coming through as well. So yeah, I think that's a great opportunity and option for people who are trying to get onto that property ladder to actually get involved.
And the caveat I put on that is that when you go into that particular transaction, so, obviously the millennial crowd is very familiar with buy now, pay later, but they use it for shoes and clothing and electrical appliances, which is, stuff that you might like, but it's not an appreciating asset like property.
My wife disagrees. Shoes are an investment.
Okay. I'll take that on board. But the reality is if you switch on the right thinking, and you know that this is a medium to long-term play, because I know there are people out there who would say, what happens if the property drops in the next 6 months? You're buying something that's gone down. No, that's not how you look at it. You look at it this way. You go, I'm investing, I'm buying a slice of property, I'm paying it off, no interest. So in 18 months' time, I own it, unencumbered, my name's registered on title from day one, collecting my rental check, but I'm not looking at this going over the next 12 months because I should be looking at 5 to 10 years down the track.
Correct.
And now that you're an owner in 18 months' time, your name is, you're on the property ladder, your name's registered on title, I think it could be an effective way for some people to get started.
Well, you actually become a property owner at the time that you transact that deposit. So when you transact the deposit, you own that property. And unlike buy now, pay later, where there's a whole lot of like late payment fees there is none of that in this. So long as you make your 18 monthly repayments and they all get paid, then that Bricklet becomes yours.
And that's why I really encourage for those who are thinking about it, make sure you've switched on the right thinking, because you're going in it with the right attitude, knowing that this is my commitment. I'm running with the conviction that I believe that property is a great tool for me to help me achieve my financial goals. And it's something that I'm building for the medium to long term. And then you just commit yourself to getting that paid, owning it. Do it faster if you can. Get on to the next one, and then keep building bricklet by bricklet or bit by bit on whatever your investment strategy and it might end up being. But, work towards getting started, hustle. Think outside of the box, switch on the right thinking, and surround yourself with like-minded people that can encourage you to stay the path.
Great. Mate, I don't have anything else to add on that. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think, I think the surf's calling.
Okay. Hopefully it's a bit bigger than I was this morning. All right, great.
All right, I'll talk to you later, Matt.
See you,
Catch you next week.
Bye.